So Randy,
Okay.
dude, just tell me, yeah, tell me about, tell me about growing up in Oakland.
Okay. So, my mom was born in Oakland, and my dad moved to Oakland at the age of 3. He lived on Athol Avenue. And I know I'm not supposed to cuss, but, my dad was this crazy, crazy prankster. And so he loved to tell me how he grew up on Asshole Avenue. And just because that's who he was. Um, so, it was just sort of in me. I'm a long time Oakland guy. And in my neighborhood, it's about a mile up the street from the Oakland Zoo. It was a really interesting neighborhood in that it was really racially integrated. I'm going to guess maybe 30% African American where I lived, and there were some Asians, probably over 50% white. But it was, it was pretty integrated, and it was very middle class. The African American families were definitely well-to-do, and it was just a really cool, healthy place to grow up. And in addition, 3 doors up the street was Vita Blue. Go a few more doors up the street, Marcus Foster, the superintendent of Oakland schools, that was assassinated by the Symbionese Liberation Army. And his nephew, Keenan Foster, is working in Oakland schools, and I'm working with him now. We've reconnected around that a little bit.
Oh, wow.
Joe Morgan lived in the neighborhood as well. The second baseman, the Hall of Fame second baseman for the Cincinnati Reds. Angela Davis was in the neighborhood. Larry Graham, the bass player of Sly and the Family Stone and Graham Central Station, was in the neighborhood. Then, if you went back down the hill, about down by where the Oakland Zoo is, across the street from the Bottleneck Liquor Store, that's where Sonny Barger lived, the founder of the Hells Angels in the Bay Area. And he was a kind of this crazy, definitely crazy cult figure, and I interacted with him a lot because I worked in that liquor store. Anyway, there were all these really interesting people in the neighborhood, and it was just my normal. I didn't know that it was anything spectacular, but looking back on it, I know that it was. So Oakland has this really amazing, deep, rich history, and I feel like I'm part of that continuum, to be able to have experienced that and to be able to work in Oakland schools and give back some.
Oh, hell yeah. No, I think I'll just say it before we keep going, but without a doubt, I put up a sign like maybe like 10, 12 days ago. Yeah, I don't know if I would have continued playing music if it wasn't for like having you as a teacher. Which is like kind of my connection to you in a big way. But I'm also just grateful, that you kind of have created inroads for a lot of other people, not just musicians, but, how do I say it? Like people within the Oakland community, people within, also, other communities that you're associated in. But, you're just kind of you're one of these people who I feel like kind of, you're the reason a lot of people meet. And someone about this too. Talking actually with Lisa about this, but just you're that dude. I feel like.
Yeah.
So we're grateful for you, Randy.
Well, I feel really lucky and grateful. It's a two-way street, and the fact that you came into my classroom, I'm the lucky recipient of that. And so, every time you or Anissa or Adam Green or Ben Green, or I could go on and on. All these amazing kids came into my classroom. So I'm very grateful that I got to be able to hang out and work with you all, really.
Yeah. But yeah, moving on, I want to talk on a few subjects specifically.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, man. How are you dealing with it? How you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. There's a lot to be grateful for here. Both my sons they're still in school online, but they're both home now. One came back from Washington, one came back from Irvine, and so all 4 of us are at home. We're hanging together. It's beautiful in a lot of ways. It's there's a little cabin fever, but we're also able to go on walks, and it's beautiful here. And so is it easy? It's not easy, but then I think about other people's situations, and I realize that we're really, really fortunate. So I feel like we're doing just fine. How are you doing?
Yeah, so basically, yeah, the isolation hang, I actually kind of like it for the most part. I miss being able to do a few more things. But as a whole, I'm actually pretty cool with it. Yeah, I mean, I think a large part of
Okay.
it comes down to right now, I guess I should say I live in a pretty, it's a small apartment in a lot of ways, but it's actually kind of a big apartment for it's for two people. Lena and I both we have two rooms outside of and a kitchen and a bathroom. So
Okay. Hmm.
they're huge rooms. So, Lena's in the other room doing her thing. I can be in here doing mine and we can separate and then we can convene again and vice versa. So it's not like, you know, it just has to kind of structure itself the right way. But I noticed just getting up every morning, kind of jumping into action, that's just been a big part of what's kept me, if nothing else, focused. Is there anything you're doing like that? Like you're just kind of, is there any because I remember we talked on the phone the other day, you talked about you're walking a little bit with your friends, just
Yeah.
to walk around the neighborhood around this time of day, actually, 10 a.m. your time.
I've taken some really nice walks. Yesterday was yesterday was like a 2-mile walk around the neighborhood, but the day before yesterday, I took a really long walk. For those that know this area, I walked into Wildcat Canyon and then walked into Tilden Park and then up through the Berkeley Hills. And I was hoping to end up at Pete's Coffee. And I did, but it was closed. They were open till 2:30, but it was after that when I got there. But so that was about an 8-mile walk the day before yesterday. So I'm kind of using this. I don't usually take these long walks, but I'm doing it now every other day. I'll take a long walk today. One of these days, I want to walk to the end of San Pablo Avenue, which is at the Carquinez Straits. Where the Carquinez Bridge is. I don't know how far that is. I think it's probably 15 miles. So give myself most of a day to do it. Call my wife and ask her to come pick me up. I don't think I want to walk there and walk back. So yeah, I'm taking a lot of long walks. As a teacher, I'm in touch with my students, and I spend. Actually, right now we're supposed to be on spring break, so we're not mandated to do anything. But I'm spending a lot of time finding different resources online, and there's a lot of them, and then spending the time to figure out how to use them. It's not my wheelhouse to just be able to figure out to figure out the software. So I have to spend a little time. I'm an old guy. As far as it goes with using the internet and stuff like that. So it takes me a little while. But I don't know if you know about smart music.
Yeah. I was talking with Zach
Yes.
about that, and he actually demoed it. Did a cool.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it kind of. Yeah, I'll talk more about that later. But yeah, he told me a lot about these other programs. He's saying there's one called I forgot what it's called, but yeah, I have it. I have the video of it. I'm gonna check back later. But
Okay.
yeah, he seemed to be like kind of, in that. But I think it's, which is great. I think it's amazing that these programs exist like that, and you can kind of keep,
Right.
especially like Zoom. We're able to just have communication with each other like this. It's not ideal, obviously, but
No, but it's amazing.
yeah, like you're 6,000 miles away. I can freaking just, yeah. What's up, Randy? So.
I know, it's amazing. It's a new era. So of course the confinement we have is it's pretty interesting because we're still it's not even if it was 15 years ago, we would not be able to do this. We wouldn't be able to communicate like this.
Right.
So it's not such a terrible confinement, really.
No, yeah. I find too, I guess I wanted to ask you about this, just different creative projects. You kind of mentioned, I guess, yeah, this is one of my questions that I have here. Like, what were you doing before the virus hit? But I guess, yeah, you kind of touched on that because I know you're a full-time teacher at Roosevelt as well as, you're doing all yeah, you also just have your private students, you got your family time too. Yeah, I know Deborah, she's like, Randy, family time. And you're like, yes, family time. And, you have
Right.
sons and that kind of, you think about 24 hours, that'll take up a day easily. But I guess what projects since you know, everything kind of getting canceled, schools closing, everything else. What projects are you working on currently? That's what I'm curious about. Aside from getting the software up to date, but like, what music stuff are you doing?
Well, you know, learning, I'm going to learn how to play the guitar. You know, that's one of the, like for example, I've been playing through a couple tunes that I kind of know but don't really know, like Stablemates.
Yeah.
That's a tune that I really need to learn how to play better. So I'm playing that every day. Using the different modes of the ascending melodic minor, I always fall, while I can do it some, and I you know, there's the Lydian dominant and the altered scale starting on the seventh. There's just a few things I do with it, but I mean, there's just so many projects that are half-baked for me that had to go on the shelf because I'm doing other things, mostly because I'm teaching. So I'm getting back to that and exploring the different modes and how to use them a little bit. So as far as my own playing, I'm doing that. I'm thinking about, I haven't actually started writing yet, but you know, in a few days, in 2 days, I'm going to be 59. And for my 60th birthday, I want to put a record out. And so I thought, well, this is a really good time to start thinking about what that music is going to be like. So I've started thinking about it and writing it in my head, at least a one substantial piece, about a 15-minute long piece. Sure. That will be largely notated, but with a lot of improvisation. So I haven't actually started writing it down yet, but I'm going to soon. And I need to give myself structure to really sit down and do it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. Plus, there's, you know, as I look around, look at all the instruments in this room, I've given a few violin lessons, and I realized, man, I really need to get better at the violin, which also makes me realize, yeah, man, I haven't been playing mandolin. I need to work on my mandolin playing. And I mean, I've got 100 instruments in this room that I'm in right now. So there's just, there's no shortage of projects for me. And one of my big problems is that I play around with one thing for a little bit and then something else, and then I don't make the kind of headway that I want to make because I'm surrounded by so much. This room, I'm a kid in a candy store here, really. Right. So, yeah.
Though it's amazing, but yeah, I hear you 100%. I'm the same way. I don't need a lot either to distract me. It's just, you know, I think it's a big deal to acknowledge that. I think if nothing else, that, you know, the structure needs to, you know, that it needs to come from within. And that's something I've been talking with everyone about, actually. It's something that's come up with like everyone I've interviewed so far, and including you. I guess I'm gonna bring it up, but I guess we've all mentioned this is kind of the time when we all can, rather than look outward, but look more inward. I guess, what do you think about that? I'm curious.
It's always been an issue for me. So, you know, one of the great things about my job is that we have this summer break where we have a few months off. And I always set these lofty goals for myself, and I always fall short, and I get really sad and pretty depressed that I don't get enough done in the summer. And I realize, God, if I only had this, if I could only self-impose the same kind of structure that I have during the school year. And of course, you know, I'm at this job, I need to be there at 8 a.m. and so I'm going to be there at 8 a.m. But it's really hard for me. And I have a lot of respect for people like you who don't have that kind of structure. You have to self-impose it. You and Deshaun Jones, for example, who can just, you just have to push and push and push. And I did that a lot in my 20s. And then I realized, you know, this teaching gig, it gives me this structure, and I think I can be more successful within a structure. I was always disappointed at how slow I was at writing music. So it's a little hard for me, because and the older I get, the you know, the easier I am on myself. And I realize, you know, I've been able to get some things done and complete a lot of projects. I have way more unfinished projects than finished projects, unfortunately. But I don't really beat myself up about it much anymore, but I'm conscious of it, and it still certainly really affects my mood. So
yeah.
I'm trying to create structures for myself.
Yeah, I hear you on that. I mean, it's, yeah, I guess for me, what I see is too, like everything you're saying, I echo 100%. It's like the same in my life. I feel like, I have certain jobs that I'm doing right now, especially with teaching, where, I have students and, you have to just, and I kind of moved all my lessons over virtually, but still, how that structure all works and how that kind of has to form, it is a lot of self, I kind of dictate the terms, but, it still takes a lot of, once it's set, it is kind of like a job, like you're talking about, where it says 8 a.m., I got to be there. That's what it's like for me. But I guess the thing that it kind of comes down to, I'm finding more and more, is just being very willing to take those 15 minutes, those painful 15 minutes, and do that thing that is like really scary. Like, whether that be look at my bank statement, or like gross income versus like, all the other stuff I got going on, what's incoming, what's not, just getting those things together. Also, not just doing that with finances, obviously, but then applying maybe and saying, okay, what is it that I need to do with my workout routine? Okay, I need to just make sure that, nothing else, I'm moving my ass like 30 minutes at least before take 30 minutes of break and then eat breakfast. That's kind of what I realize I need to do for me. And, it's not to say that, if you don't do that, you're a terrible person, but I think it comes down to just getting that level of honesty with yourself and realizing, like you say, like, you're not going to beat yourself up if it isn't perfect. You're just going to say, this level of honesty is like truly what, it's what needs to happen in order to get from A to B. And it's like math, you can't, if X is always going to be, X doesn't change, or I should say, 2 plus 2 is always going to be 4. And that's just something we all have to,
right. Right.
Already you need 2 more, and that, you can't get to 4 without that other 2. So it's, but I hear you on that. It's a lot of it. Yeah. It's hard not to beat yourself up about it, I find, and it's hard for me not to do that. But I find this is, like I said, an equalizing time. Like, I don't, like, I really just, I mean, yeah, I'm kind of telling my story here as much as I'm asking you about yours, but it's like, I'm finding that if anything, it's just kind of a time when, no one's working, in terms of gigs. They're like, I gotta be at, I gotta be at the opera hall. I gotta, all the events are canceled. And
right.
As a performing musician, a lot of my ego and what I think about my musicianship is kind of based in that, or it can be based, I can base that on that. But the truth is like, you take that away, what am I doing? Who are you? And what are you really about? And I feel like that's what I get from teaching that I don't get from performing, is like, I get this sense of, or I don't get as much from performing all the time, but just this sense of like, I'm really, I can see the immediate result of what I'm doing, helping somebody. Like, I see a student come one day, they can't play their major scales. The next week, they're getting better. And then over the course of a month, I'm like, dude, you're shredding. Like, I have students, I remember when I started out with them, like back in November, I don't know, blue scales were hard. Now they're just like, well, not so much like that, but they hear me do it. And
Right.
Oh yeah, what is that? I almost got it. And I'm like, okay, cool. So yeah, anyway, I guess I'm gonna come back to the questions, because I don't want to I want to kind of keep this somewhat structured. But yeah, man, I wrote this down as one of the questions, but yeah, maybe we talk a bit about this more. I guess, yeah, we're in a crazy time right now. And I have asked everybody this question. Is there anything you've done specifically to prepare for this? Hair, anything, it doesn't matter. I'm not talking about like, I mean, what have you done like since like the news came out? School's closed, you know.
I'll tell you what I haven't done.
What you haven't done.
What,
Tell me what you have done first, though, please.
no, I want to tell you what I haven't done, because these are things I thought about doing but didn't do. I think this is, I didn't go out and buy a gun. I thought about it. I thought, you know what? It's this is, if this gets really, really bad, this, you know, maybe I need something to defend myself. And lo and behold, you know, stores ran out of toilet paper, and then there were all these, I don't know if you saw the in the news, there were all these lines, 50 or 60 people outside these gun shops getting guns, stocking up on guns. So I didn't buy a gun. Thought about it, but no, it's just, we didn't hoard toilet paper.
Right.
We don't have any masks. And I wish I knew how to sew better. I mean, I know how to sew by hand a little bit. I can sew buttons on shirts, but man, you know, so those are things we didn't do. So what did I really do to prepare? I did go to the grocery outlet market down the street, you know, the discount market, and I bought a bunch of like granola bar type things that will last for 6 months, and just, you know, some in the event that we can't get to the market. Unfortunately, I've already just because they're good to snack on, I've eaten half of them along with my sons. Haven't done a whole lot to prepare for it, quite honestly.
That's cool. You know? And I've shared this in a few other interviews, but I'm going to share this side of the screen. So what you're looking.
Oh my God! How are you going to offload that huge bag of cocaine?
Well, that's salt. But those.
No, I know the other picture. The other picture.
Oh, dude, yeah, that's.
I'm sorry. I know. Okay. All right. That's flour, right?
Yeah, I kind of realized, like, you know, this is stuff Lena and I use all the time, you know, but we.
Is that turmeric right there?
Yeah, that's turmeric. That's a black pepper. That's a black pepper turmeric sandwich right there. So.
Yes, it is. That's a hell of a lot of turmeric.
Yeah, it's about a kilo worth. Yeah, it's a kilo worth. So,
do you eat that much turmeric? Man, that's gonna last you. That's a lifetime's worth of turmeric.
I kind of just put it on everything I eat, you know. And also there, I got oat milk with some soy milk back there, and then
good.
I also have red sauce, as they call it, red lentils.
Love red lentils.
Green lentils, rice, protein powder. You name it, it's there. And then also with that, actually, let me share it back. Let me share this. Right. Oh yeah, I have to do that, and then I go back here, and then yeah. This is all oatmeal. That's 25. $30 on Amazon. No, it was eBay. It was eBay. So, you know, I kind of just, you know, I realized I eat this anyway. So I was like, dude, I saw the way the stores were kind of going. I was like, dude, I just need to be a little, maybe not crazy, but I need to just make sure I have what I need. Kind of.
Good for you. Do you have? Let me ask you, where you live, do you have any kind of rodent problem?
Luckily, no. I live on the second floor. I guess they call it the first floor in Germany, but it's really the second floor.
Right.
And yeah, no one lives below us, so I can jump up and down as much as I want. No one will.
Nice.
I shouldn't say all these details about where I live, and then publish it. But anyway, so.
Okay, because I was going to suggest that maybe you put all that stuff in a plastic bin, because if I was a mouse, I would eat my way through that burlap and get to that oatmeal.
Yeah, that's the thing. We haven't. Yeah, I've never had a rodent problem here.
Okay.
Clean. But when it hasn't been clean, we've never had an issue. Ants, nothing.
Okay.
My house in Oakland, but yeah,
mm-hmm.
It's cool. I don't mind. For now, and we're on the first floor, so you know, I think if I was on the ground floor, we'd have a different story. But
right.
You actually have to climb up something in order to get to us, so that's the good news. Okay. I guess I also just want to ask you, Randy. Yeah, like just to be clear, how long have you been teaching now in Oakland?
Well, let's see. I got back. I spent a year traveling around Europe I got back 85. I actually, the fall of 85 was my first year as a part-time teacher, starting fall of 85. So, damn, that makes that if those first year, you know, my first job was at a private school called Concordia. So then that was 85, 86, 86, 87, I started substituting in Oakland. 87, 88, it was my first Oakland Unified job. So all in all, it's been, I guess this is my 35th year. It's crazy, huh?
It is, man. I mean, but I mean, you've had so many students in that time, I guess, you know, and you've had the opportunity to just work with so many different kids, or so many young, when they're young kids, but you know, now they're adults and stuff.
And amazing people like you,
Yeah.
and kids like, I don't know if you know, there's this kid, Teddy Abrams, that I got to work with. He's now the conductor of the Louisville Symphony.
Oh, wow.
David Ricchiro, who was already too good on cello, so I taught him trombone, and he's a cello professor, and he tours the world as a soloist. So many really amazing musicians that, you know, who are not that much younger than me. I mean, people who are like well into their mid 40s even.
Right.
And yeah, so it's been, you know, yeah, it's been pretty cool.
I guess the other thing you do too really well is you've kind of trained a lot of other teachers, whether you realize it or not too. I mean, you trained me as a teacher in a lot of ways because you had me, well, when I was actually probably too young to do it, you had me come into your classroom and work with your students, and when you were back at Westlake, as well as, you know, you've had other students, like you have this going on now where you're inviting students to come back and also work with who are like in high school age, working with middle school stuff.
Right.
Maybe I'm curious if you could just talk a bit about that process and and your thoughts on that.
Well, I mean, the amazing thing about it is that the people that I've been able to work with, inevitably, I've probably ended up learning as much from them. You know, I got to, you know, I was Zach Pitt-Smith's mentor teacher, and at this point, I'm pretty sure I've learned more from him than he's learned from me. You know, he's such a master teacher, and so I've had I've been really fortunate. I've been really lucky, and right now, you know, one of the people that I have who's teaching my students is this trombonist, Karina, who started in my classroom, 3 years ago, right?
Yeah,
and she's
amazing. I love her spirit. She was always just like, I'm doing it. Like, didn't really say much, really low key about it, but just would be like, yeah, that's happening.
Pretty much. So, I think that I mean, music can do so many things, and I think having that one-on-one connection is so important. And I can't provide that. You know, I have 170 students at Roosevelt, and you know, I can't give that much one-on-one time to students. So if we can provide mentorships so that these high school kids can develop their leadership skills, and some of the college kids, or people who just graduated from college, like Ben Green, he's been coming into my classroom, and I've watched him transform. He's turning into a really good teacher, and it's beautiful to see. So I don't know. I just think it's another thing that I realize is I'll take as much help as I can get, because
right.
there's never enough. Especially for this community that I serve, and so if I can get more people into the classroom, it works out. It works out for everyone, and yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to kind of wrap things up. But I just want to ask real quick. I interviewed someone earlier today, and I asked him, you know, because he was talking a lot about, you know, he's a friend of mine who's very. He has a high nerve level. Like, he's just like, you know, a little bit more like this. Well, I'm not gonna throw him under the bus, but I will say, but I just want to ask you though, Randy. Kind of ended it with the gratitude round. I guess, yeah. Name some. Just shout some stuff out that you're grateful for. You can also use this if you want to, as like, you want to plug somebody, plug them. Just shout it out. Gratitude, whatever.
Mm. You open up a Pandora's box here in many ways, because there's so many people who I'm really grateful for. But I also want you to know that, do you remember when you were my student? Let's see, Josephine Iancoya, that really tall young lady who was the lead trombonist, and there was the other, oh gosh, the other trombonist who was pretty good, who was a girl, young woman.
Yeah.
But do you remember that? Do you remember the drummer? He was really kind of annoying and loud and a bit of a, what was his name?
I forgot his name, man. I know who you're talking about though. I remember we were playing Poco Loco, and every time, you know, you'd ask, "What do you guys want to play?" You'd be like, "Poco Loco," because like basically he could just shred them. And I was just like, all right, that's cool.
No, not again. Well, what I was going to say is, those students who are challenging to handle, I'm really grateful. I'm really grateful for that boy, because it's just sort of a reminder that why was he like that? Well, you know, if you think about what we all have going for us, you know, you came to me with two parents who really, really believed in you, who really loved you, and your mom was, you know, was always there, was helping in the classroom. And so if you think about it, what I think about equity a lot. If you think about sort of this equity equation and how some people have it easier than others, and you definitely had your challenges, but you also had a lot going for you. There are some kids that in that equity equation score really, really low, because their home life is such a mess, because they don't get to eat well, because they've witnessed a lot of abuse.
Right.
There's been a lot of traumatic stress, and so these kids come into my classroom, and I have a few of these students right now, and I have to say, I'm grateful for those kids, because I think that some of the best work I do are those students who don't end up being my highest achieving students, and in fact, in many ways, they keep our ensemble from being at a higher level. And I'm quite aware of that. But I also think it's really important to do everything we can to keep those kids in, because they need stability. They need that environment. So anyway, yeah, that's people to shout out. Rudy Tapiro, who started me on trombone in 4th grade. And when he was at Lockwood Elementary School, he brought Louis Armstrong into Oakland schools. That was a little bit before my time, but that's part of this whole continuum of what's happened in Oakland schools. I'm really grateful to you. I'm really grateful to Adam Green, who I spent an awful lot of time with when he was a kid, and drove him home a lot, and and now he's the music director of Skyline High. Yeah. And I'm learning from him. I'm watching what he does, and I'm learning from him too. It goes on and on. I'm really grateful to Allison Strike, who's been teaching in West Oakland under really challenging circumstances and doing great work. Really grateful to Helena Jack. My college, my guitar teacher in college, Theodore Norman, really important guy. He was the guitar player that premiered the Arnold Schoenberg Serenade, working with Arnold Schoenberg. And he also worked with Pierre Boulez. He worked with Stravinsky. And part of my lessons, every week I had to write a new composition and bring it in and play. And we worked on repertoire as well. And we played a lot of 12. We played all kinds of things, but he opened me up in a lot of really important ways. Right. Really grateful to Kenny Burrell, because I got to be his assistant in this Ellingtonia class at UCLA, and more importantly, he was the faculty sponsor for the UCLA Jazz Club, and we brought in so many heroes. We brought in Charlie Hayden, Billy Higgins, Don Cherry all the time. James Newton, flute player, we brought him in an awful lot as well. But so many people came through. And Kenny, you know, Kenny, he's struggling with his health right now. He's still around. I believe he's 87 years old.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I've just been able to have a lot of really amazing experiences. I like to shout out my mom because she's a hero in many ways. You know, my dad died. He just dropped dead on a business trip when I was 15. She didn't work, and she immediately had to go to work, and there was no one at home. And those years through high school were really a struggle. And she was, you know, talk about leading by example. She was it, you know. I'm lucky I didn't get myself. I could have gotten myself into big trouble. And that's another interview. What it was like in junior high and high school, because it was pretty. It was crazy, you know. The Oakland in the 70s was crazy. Not to mention the leisure suits that we used to wear and the like. All right.
Fair enough. Well, Randy, I appreciate you doing the interview. I'm going to stop recording